Good morning and welcome to our live crafting session this morning. My name's Jenny McCormack and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and I'm based in the market town of Brackley, which is in Northamptonshire in the UK. It's another hot morning this morning, but weather is due to break later, so we'll wait and see. I've had a complete revamp of my craft room over the weekend, and everything was emptied out. I've changed all my cabinets over, and half of the stuff has been put back in, and it's about 3/4 full. And I've had to change my setup for my lives, so my computer's moved around, everything else has moved around, so I'm hoping that this is all going to work. I did have a slight technical issue to start with, and that it didn't recognise my microphone, but fingers crossed I've added that in and we are good to go. So do say hi if you're joining us live this morning, so that I know that you're here. And you can obviously be catching this up on Facebook or on YouTube later. And I've just gotten the notification that we're live, so that's always good. Okay, so today we're doing some watercolouring using our watercolour pencils, but for a different look we're going to use some of our Crumb Cake card. So this is like a slightly fibrous card, and it's used for any element of crafting, so card bases and layers and the like, but you can also get really nice effect when you stamp and watercolour onto it. So we're going to be using our watercolour pencils. And the nice thing is we have a white pencil that really stands out, and you can use it to really highlight elements of a stamped image. So the images that we're stamping today are from Stylish Sketches, which is this stamp set here. This is one of the free celebration stamp sets. So place an order between now and the end of August for £45 or more. And this is one of the items that you can choose, one of the stamp sets. There's stamps and dies and papers to choose from. And also Stampin' Up have released some extra items. And these are also available, and they're from the annual catalogue. So I'll pop a list of those up later on. So what we're going to do is stamp onto the card. I'm going to use Staz On Black ink, this one here, which is waterproof, and then I'm going to use our watercolour pencils like we did just a couple of weeks ago, and a water painter, and also in this stamp set there's some little dots, so I'm going to use those for the backing. And I've used our very vanilla note cards and envelopes for this, for a change. We also have craft card, but I thought that was a little bit too much craft going on. One of the other images is this image of figs and fig leaves, and so I've done that as a sample for anybody who doesn't like animals, or animal images I should say. Okay, and the other thing I did was just stamp the fox on its own, because it's got all of this sketched information, sketch detail I should say. I did stamp the fox on its own onto note card, and I think that a set of those and a set of the ducks actually just on their own, completely uncoloured, would be nice. Or you could send them on sheets of card and people colour them in when they receive them. So that would be another option. Okay, so let's get cracking. We've got the mallard ducks, male and female, and we've got the fox. Hopefully if I put those there, you can see those. And then I've cut some pieces of craft card. Now I'm probably going to cut these down. These will be just offcuts. And I've used the dies that are from the Blossoming Happiness set. And they cut this really nice edge. And so you can make it, what I wanted to do is make it look like it'd been torn out of a notebook. This one and this one. There's two styles. There's that sort of oblong one and then circular ones. And you could buff these up if you wanted to make them look like you had literally torn it out. You could sort of tear the edges as well if you wanted to. Morning, Jeanette. I hope you're well. So I'm just going to start by inking up the image. Let's get that ready. I hope the sound level is okay. I do have my microphone slightly precariously placed until I get an extension USB cord. Okay. So I've got Stays On ink here, which I'm going to use to ink it up. I hope there's enough in here. It's been so warm that on Friday it was drying out really quickly. So let's just pop it onto a sheet here to try it. Just really to make sure it's got enough ink on it. Oh yes, that's better. Okay, so we'll do the fox first and then we'll do the ducks. Oops. So I hope you had a nice weekend, Jeanette. Oh good, thank you. So I'm going to bring this over slightly to the left so I can make this a little bit smaller than my current piece, and then I will trim that right and left. So the good news about doing at my craft room is I can actually find everything. Well, should I say everything I put back? Although I did struggle to find my grid paper this morning. I had to go out to the car and get the grid paper for coffee and card. Hey ho, I'm sure I'll get used to it. Right, these are the dark, so I'll just stamp this similarly. And then just some really easy colouring in. So just a little bit of watercolour pencil and our water painter or aqua painter. Actually, I could do this one. This way. There we go. There we are. Okay. Right, so for colouring, the easy one is obviously the fox, and I've got early Espresso, I've got Cajun Craze, a little bit of white for the highlighting, and you could use, I've got a little bit of Calypso, I want it slightly more sort of orange. So let's bring this down. So it's not watercolour paper. It does absorb the water well. You don't want to really soak it. And remember, because we're on craft card, so crumb cake card, you want the colour to be quite vibrant, and the more water you add, the more diluted it's going to become. So let's give this a go. So I'm just going to add some detail like that. So actually what I am going to do is add the white, and they have a little bit of white on their tail. Like so. So just laying down a good amount of colour, and you don't even need to use the aqua painter. You could just colour it in with the watercolour pencils on their own. Okay. So I'm just going to use my aqua painter. Just squeeze a little bit of water onto the nib. And then I'm just going to move a little bit of that colour, like so. Oh, I haven't done his tail. Or her tail. Like so. Just brushing that off on a cloth, and then I'm going to add, let me bring this up to the screen so you can see it. Put my glasses on so I can see you. There we go. Hopefully you can see that all right. Whew. And then I'm just going to take early espresso and just add a little bit of a darker area around the tummy, maybe a little bit here, the back of the neck. So it really is a sketch image, so it's if you're not a fan of, you know, colouring in the lines, you really don't need to worry about it, because the lines are sort of broken up. Okay, let's just add that for the ears, and then I'm just going to grab a black pen and just add detail in for the eye and the nose, just to make it stand out a little bit more. And you want to make sure when you do that that it's dry, otherwise obviously the black of the pen might bleed. So a little bit there, that's just a little bit in the ears. So there we go, really simple. Okay, and I could add a bit more white if I wanted to. There we go, so there's that one. And then for the ducks, again I use sort of brown, so I've got Cajun Craze. Let me just sharpen this one a little bit. Morning, Linda. Get the heads up for this afternoon. Linda's one of our toaster, coffee and card ladies. So I'm just going to add this bit of detail here. Like so, Espresso and sort of over the head like that. And then I'm just going to lay down, I'm not going to fill it all in, but lay down elements of this early espresso. And then for the neck element, I've used Bermuda Bay. Okay, so if I bring it up to the screen, hopefully you can see that. And a little bit oh, excellent, Jeanette. And hi, Carol. Colouring is great fun, and you know, we tend to forget, it's easy to forget the watercolour pencils. I know I've used them quite a bit recently, it's just the way it goes, isn't it? But I thought this design is perfect for watercolour pencils. Just going to add a little bit more orange to those because I couldn't find my pumpkin pie when I did that one. Okay, so again I'm going to take my water painter, just make sure there's water at the top but not too much, and then just picking that up and blending it in. Okay, not, as I say, not getting it too wet because I don't want to dilute it too much. Just drying that off for that little bit of its neck. And the little ring that they have is white, so I'm going to add some white in a minute. And then again, just a selection of browns. Yes, it's slightly cooler, Jill, not greatly. So we're just going to, so this is early espresso. I'll just bring this up so you can see what I've done so far, hopefully. Whew. And then just adding a mixture. This is Calypso. Let's add a little bit of Calypso. Give her a little bit of a pink to her body. Okay. And then picking up the aqua painter and just again moving that colour round. Like so. And if you think it's too dark, whatever, you can just mop it out a little bit to dilute it and then go back in with a different colour. Let's do their beaks, a bit of yellow. Like so. There we go. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of ground here, and I might just add a little bit of green. Like so. And then again just blend that in. Like so. Hopefully you can see that okay. Right, so I want to do the white of this bit of the collar here. Like that. It's just a small amount. And then I'm going to add my pen again for the eye, just to make that detail. You could also use a white gel pen to just go around the edge of the eye like a little comma. Okay, So there's our 2 sketches all done. Let me pop those away. My pen. So I'm just going to trim this down a little bit and layer them up. So these were just sort of cuts, and they're about 2.5, let's measure them, no, 3 by 4-ish. So I'm going to take this one down a little bit here. And maybe a little bit off each side. Just to get a different look for this one. So is that one there. Whew. Okay, and then take a little bit off this one. Like that. Yeah, I think that sort of works as is. And then I could add a sentiment onto here, or I can add it onto the base card. So for both of these I used very vanilla card base, and on this one I've stamped over the background with the spots, and on this one I stamped it on the layer. I think let's just pop a couple of thank yous on there maybe. I've got this little thank you that I used. And Jill, I did find that stamp. It was at home on a block. Okay. Whew. Just going to try this out on here. Yeah, that's fine. So there's a little thank you. So Jill will probably like the fox, because Jill is an avid supporter of Leicester City, also known as the Foxes. Okay, right, let's layer these up. So let's do the fox first, and I've got some Cajun Craze. I just think that sets him off really nicely. And I think what I'm going to do is trim this down as well. So I'm just going to use a pencil rather than measure it. One and two. Okay, and then I'm going to add those little spots. It's one of those really useful stamps. Okay. And on the others I did them in early Espresso, but as I've got the black here, I'll just use that. And just popping it around the edge. Just make sure you're rotating the stamp although it's not a very distinct pattern. And this makes a really good ground effect as well. So what I can do is just add that on there. If you can see that enough detail or not. Not sure. Morning, Jane. There we go. So this is either going to go on straight or jaunty. I haven't quite decided. Let's do a backing for our ducks this time. And maybe, I do quite like this green, although Bermuda Bay is the colour that I use for that next. It's a slightly bluey green, obviously, so I think I'll go with that for a change. And I'm going to do this one in portrait, and again I'm going to trim this down. So just going to literally mark it with a pencil here and here. So having cleared out my craft room at the weekend, I now have a job to clear out my lounge with what was left that came out of the craft room that hasn't gone back in. So wish me luck with that, and I will do a couple of photos later to show you the finished results. Morning, Claire. So that's going to go onto there, that one onto there. Okay, let's cover up the ink pad. And for those that weren't here earlier, I think even just stamping it sketch fashion onto a vanilla card is really nice. You could just send a set of those. Right. Vanilla cards and envelopes. So these, like our white ones, come in packs of 20 cards and 20 envelopes. They're already pre-scored for you. And pre-cut. And I just thought the vanilla was nicer than the white against this. Go, and I'm just finishing the final design for our class in a box for this month, so that will be released shortly today. Just got one more to design. Okay, so am I going to go straight or jaunty? Half and half. How about that? Thanks, Jeanette. Look after yourself and have a great day with your granddaughter. So, and I'm just going to keep these nice and flat. Oh, I didn't do any spots, just to soften that. I was going to do it around the outside. It's a bit late now, so I'll just put it on here. Like that. And they're very fine, so they are really effective. Get away with that. So there's one. Oh, and I do want to stamp those on the envelope. Morning to you, Kay. So I like to get in the habit of lifting the flap up, and that tells me A, that I've got it the right way round, and B, stops you catching the back of the flap when you're stamping. There we go. And I could colour those in as well, but I quite like them as they are. So that's one. And let's do our fox. So I've got a busy, well, I always have a fairly busy week, don't I, to be honest, but a fairly busy week ahead. So say the final design will be on my desk straight after I've had my coffee, and then details of that will be sent out. It'll be available on Facebook and also obviously by email. I could put these up on dimensionals, but I just want to keep these nice and simple and flat. Like so. Just going to turn that over. Make sure I don't put any ink or glue on them from my fingers. And there we go. Whoops. My thumb in the ink pad, not so clever. And I think we're going to have him just coming in on the edge. And that's it. So just over my half-hour marker. But happy with that otherwise. So there's our fox on our envelope and our, no, yes, our finished card from today, and our two mallards with their envelope too. So I hope you've enjoyed those. That's what we're making at Coffee and Card this afternoon. As I say, there's also the figs and fig leaves, so you could do that instead if you wanted to. And then here's the ones that I did ready for Friday. So there we go. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I will be back tomorrow, and I will be back tomorrow evening. I have a team meeting at 8. I'm just hesitating about that. Yes, I have a team meeting at 8 online, and so we'll be here at 7 PM tomorrow for our new stamp set of the week. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope you like the designs. I hope you give it a go, and I look forward to crafting with you again soon. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye for now.